Welcome to another video. This is interview number 5 in my series of one-on-one interviews with people who have had encounters with these creatures. This interview is especially good because the man is a big game hunter, outfitter out west, and you're going to hear all about some of the things that's going on, on his place. And I really admire these guys, these outfitters. They work all year long. They just work their butts off just to scratch out a living out there. But here's the important thing to know. These guys that do this, they know the woods, the wildlife. They know everything that's going on in these woods. And they're one of the best sources for information on Bigfoot and other cryptids, strange creatures that inhabit our North American woodlands. And I think you're going to enjoy this video and this interview. The man is knowledgeable. He's an African big game hunter, North American big game hunter. And I don't think we even hit 10% of the things that he's got going on. And I invited him to come back, and if he's willing to do that, maybe a month or two down the road, and keep us posted or tell us more stories about what's going on his place, I would just be thrilled to death to hear from him. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'll shut up. Welcome to my people. All right, here we go. Hey. Everybody, welcome to another video. I think this is interview number 5. We're just going to jump right into it. I have Mike on the phone. Mike is in Colorado. He's a big game hunter, big game outfitter in Colorado. I don't know what part of the state he's in. Southwest Colorado. He's gonna.
Our ranch is southwestern Colorado. We live in Cucharas, Colorado.
Okay. Reason I was asking, I've got some contact with a woman down there close to Pueblo. She's got some weird things going on too. But anyway, Mike contacted me and told me that he's got some really unusual stuff going on with his lease and his ranch. And I just wanted to talk to him. I wanted you to hear his story. So Mike, if you just want to start from the beginning and just tell us all what you want us to hear about this stuff. So just go.
Well, as you've stated, my name's Mike. I own and operate a working ranch, 9,600 acres total. That's owned. I've got another 11,000 acres that are leased in southwestern Colorado. We do guided big game hunts. We do mule deer, bear, elk, mountain lion, pretty much anything that would walk these hills we hunt. And we also are a full working cattle ranch. And this all started in 2014. I've been on this ground, though. Well, let's just get that in the air. I've been here my whole life. I was born and raised on this ranch, and there had never been anything until the first instance that I was aware of was 2014. I had 2 elk hunt clients at the time. I had 2 guides full time at then. We were overlooking some of the dark timber, and we had, from our position to the timber itself, we were sitting in some oak quakies on a hillside looking down into the timber, and it was 47 yards, from us to the timber. And we had a 70 to 90 pound rock, and it was thrown uphill from the dark timber and landed this honest to God's truth. It landed 1.5 inches from a client. This is not your average client. This guy's hunted with me since 2002. Now we're talking 2014. This is his 12th year hunting on this ranch. And that rock would have literally killed the man had it hit him. It was thrown 47 yards.
And it came with some velocity, I guess.
It left a 4.5 inch imprint in the ground where it hit. This client's exact words to me were, "Get me the hell off this mountain and get me the hell out of here." This is a pay hunter. These aren't freebie hunts. These are pay hunts. And when a man that has hunted the world over tells you to get him the hell off this mountain, it's serious. Not a word of anything had been spoken between us the ride down. I've got 2 outfitter shacks on this property that we guide out of, and upon arrival at the shack we were staying in, it's more like cabins, I guess. We call them outfitter shacks, but they're little 1-bedroom cabins. He turned to us and said, "This is not what I meant." He said, "When I told you to get me the hell off this mountain, I want off this mountain." We ended up on, and that's day 3 of a 7-day paid hunt. We ended up packing this man all the way out back to the ranch, and at which point drove him to the airport, and away he went, and he's never been back since.
Man.
Yeah. This is a paid hunter, and like I said, this was his 12th year hunting with us, and I haven't heard a word from the man since.
Now, I know you've got a lot more to tell, but I hope you don't mind me interrupting, but I've just got a couple of questions. So you're born and raised on this property, and you know these woods, you know the wildlife, you know how to hunt them, track them. I mean, you know everything.
I know everything that I thought was here, yeah.
But all of a sudden in 2014, this pops up. Is it too early to talk about that at this point, or were you going to get to that? I'm curious how do you think these things have migrated in? Do you think it's Bigfoot?
I know it is. Without a doubt in my mind, and then hell, it's like anything in life that you got to tell somebody about. Half of them laugh at you, the other half think you're crazy, and you got a select few, including yourself, that even think you are crazy. And but no, I know exactly what it is. I've been here my whole life. There's been instances prior to this, but it was never anything like what had occurred, and so I always shook them off as being, BS stories that my grandpa would tell us. I never believed it.
Right. Until
I picked that rock up and I attempted to throw it down the hill, and the rock landed less than 12 feet from where I chucked it. I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. I'm a pretty good sized boy. I pack elk out all the time, deer, we're pretty healthy guys up on this ranch, and I couldn't chuck that rock very far, and it came uphill. We watched it come over the timber at us. I mean, it was plain as daylight.
Right.
And, when you asked me, do I know what's here? Absolutely. I knew what I thought lived in these woods, and I've never had a deer throw anything at me. I've never had an elk throw anything at me. Never seen a bear pick a rock up and chuck it at somebody, just something to do. So, explanation fits itself.
Right. So that's 2014. This is 2000. Yes, this is 2020. That's a lot of. You're a little concerned about all this, and so what's transpired since that first elk hunter?
Well, we got, like I said, the 2 cabins every year. We close them down January 31st, empty them out, and these aren't. You're not driving to these cabins. These are rough backwoods, full guided horseback hunts. You're not driving to these places. These aren't the crap that you'd see the BFRO or any of these clowns on TV that are hunting Bigfoot, that are walking in there and they walk up a single ridge line and say, this is, from the house itself at 8,200 feet to 12,000 feet in altitude. We got 14,000 foot peaks in the background here that we hunt. It's true back timber, big country hunts. So when I say these cabins, these aren't, you're not getting in a car and driving to this cabin. This is the west cabin's a 12.5-mile ride in on horseback. The southwest cabin is 15.5 miles. And so when we're done for the season, with the guided hunts, we close them up, and we'll come back early in the spring and get them open back up, make sure there's no damage from winter, trees falling, et cetera, et cetera. Just, we spend a lot of time because, like I said, these hunts are 80% of the revenue that this ranch receives on a yearly basis. The cattle market's so up and down anymore. I try not to focus on cattle as heavy as we used to here, such as my father and my grandfather's days. So these, the guiding is a pretty lucrative business. It keeps this ranch alive. It keeps 4 people employed, and it keeps my girlfriend pretty happy, during the year. And so we spend a lot of time taking care of this property. It's not a fly-by-night kind of operation.
Right. So you're a little concerned this is going to cut into your livelihood.
Yeah, because as I stated, the first actual, I don't know what you'd call it, an instance, or I'm not quite sure what you want to call it. The first warning, perhaps we could call that, I guess, when the rock was thrown at us. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's progressively gotten worse. We thought in 2015, the spring of 2015. You know, we had hunted 2014, which is September 1st to January. And then we go back up in the spring. So now we're in 2015. We go up and the cabins are just tore to hell. I mean, it looked like tornadoes hit them. But we don't have tornadoes in Colorado right here. It's never been one. So we had supply. Now this is another thing. It's a costly adventure doing this because everything's got to be flown in. You know, you can't carry 4x8 sheets of plywood, 4x8 sheets of the insulation up in here on horseback. You just can't do it. And so we had, you know, a local pilot, helicopter pilot, fly us in a bunch of supplies. We fixed the cabins back up. And throughout the summer, we had many instances of doors being just knocked in, stuff being thrown around, wood burning stoves thrown outside. I mean, things that, you know, you're going to scratch your head to it because why would anybody be back here to begin with in this country? I mean, everything around me is private except my lease, which, you know, is private too because I have the lease rights to it.
Right.
So this isn't BLM within a mile of us that somebody'd be trespassing. The nearest BLM, you know, public lands are 18 miles, I think, to the west of us. So if it is people doing it, you know, what we were thinking, then they've hiked back in there quite a ways. And why would they do that just to tear stuff up? It makes no sense. And so what we've done is we started, you know, summer of 2015, just kind of fixing things. And I got a wild idea by Steve at howtohunt.com about bear boards. And I said, well, let's try it. A bear board, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, when you lock a cabin up for the winter in Alaska, you'll take 2x6s and you'll drive 3-inch screws. I mean, hundreds of them, these 2x6s, and you just lay them around the property at access points of your cabin where the bears know to carry in a door or tear through a window or et cetera and get into these cabins. So we did that. And it didn't work. Let's put it lightly. What happened was the boards had gotten dug up and they were stuck into the side of the siding of the cabins. Like somebody drilled it like a baseball bat, like the boards were used as a baseball bat and swung into the sides of the cabin so hard it buried 3-inch screws. I'm sure anybody out there that's ever driven a screw knows how hard to drive a 3-inch screw into something, especially when there's hundreds of them on a board. And these boards were swung into the sides of the cabin. Not a single screw had been stripped like a drill had done it. And out of as many screws that were in them boards, I guarantee if you're doing that with a screw gun, you better have packed in 100 batteries with you. So that was one of the weird things that we kind of noticed, like, you know, just had a scratch in our heads as far as, you know, what the hell are we dealing with here? And so it got to the point it's kind of common to expect now that we got to fix the cabins all the time. So that's where we're at with that. And then in 2015 hunting season rolled around. We had some hunters up here. I had 4 of them, a husband, a wife, and 2 kids. And they were on their first elk hunt. It was kind of neat, you know, to do a family hunt like that's pretty fun. Yeah. And so I took them personally. You know, I had my other guides, you know, guiding some. I think they were doing lion hunt at that time and a bear hunt. And then I took this family to do their elk hunt. The youngest son, I don't think I ought to probably name names, but his name was Trevor. I just won't use their last name. But Trevor killed a real nice 5x6 bull elk. This is a 15-year-old boy. During that, we got his bull and we got it quartered up and processed. And, you know, as far as field processing would go, I caped the bull out for a mount. Yeah, I don't know how many people are familiar with an elk, but they're a big animal, you know, and when you got clients with kids and you're by yourself, you know, the safest bet to do is get your clients, their kids back to camp, and you go back in and pack the rest back in. That's what I had planned to do. I went back in. I had left the hindquarters of this elk and the rib cage. I took the front quarters, I took the cape and the head and the back straps and tenderloins out as part of the first load back to camp. And I went back and the hindquarters were gone. And I said, well, what the heck, you know? And so I walked for probably a good 3 miles, probably going in circles. There wasn't a drag mark anywhere. And if you've ever picked up an elk quarter, you know an elk quarter hind's 100, 150 pounds, you know. And these were hide on, hoof on, rough quarter, you know, laying there ready to be finished, deboned, and packed out. I found it ironic that these had been carried off. I mean, 2 quarters, that's 300 pounds of meat. There wasn't a drag mark. that's what thrilled me the most is you know, if a coyote, we don't have wolves up here at all. So on a base, I'm going to say it could have been a mountain lion, it could have been a bear, or it could have been coyotes. Well, number one, there'd be drag marks because neither one of them, except for a bear, is going to carry it off. When a bear will carry a short distance, and then a bear will, you know, eat, it'll carry it again, and then within, usually of any kill I've ever seen, within 150 to 200 yards, the bear will bury it, and they'll come back in to feed. And I've seen this thousands of times. I mean, this isn't something I'm guessing at. This is firsthand experience. I've dealt with it for, you know, years and years on the ranch. I've seen thousands of bear kill, mountain lion kill. They're all buried, and they're within 100 yards of the kill site to begin with. Right. Generally speaking, sometimes you'll get them where they'll carry them a little closer in if they've got a den or cubs nearby. They'll take it, you know, 150, 200 yards, but that's a very, very exception to the case. Coyotes, on the other hand, they'll eat it right where it's at. You know, coyotes will rarely ever drag anything. They're an opportunist. They're going to eat it right there on the spot or what they can, and they'll come back until it's finished. These have vanished. There wasn't nothing. I mean, and this is hard packed, rocky terrain. You know, so you're not going to get tracks, but you would get dragged. Later on in that week, that was kind of the end of that. Later on that week, Jeanette was her name. She took a big cow elk. That afternoon, we field dressed it, and I had noticed a couple bulls less than probably 400 yards from where we'd field dressed our cow, and the husband was anxious to get on a bull, so I said, let's leave the cow. We'll come back. We're going to knock one of these bulls down. We'll come back and get them both back out of here. So I went and radioed one of my guides to come up and help me out. We already had one cow elk down. I went ahead and field dressed her, and then we took off after these bulls, and we ended up probably 1,000 to 1,500 yards later on these bulls, and he took a nice 6x bull elk. And so here I was processing, you know, breaking down that big bull and getting it ready for a mount by skin them out and cape them, you know, that way you can mount the animal. And then anything where I've removed hide, I take the meat immediately, put it in game bags so it's not getting dirty, etc. And generally speaking, I'll leave the rear quarters still hide on. That way, when I come back, it's easy to just hide them right there, break them down, and bring them out of there. About 4 PM, my guide gets back up in there to us. You know, like I said, this isn't a drive-in location. It's a long ways, and it's rough country. This isn't going to the zoo or, you know, walking a nature trail. This is serious backwoods country. He gets in there, and we get the rest of that bull broke down and back in. And I said, well, let's go get this cow out of here. Now, mind you, all I had done was field dress this cow, which is gutting it basically. I didn't break any quarters down. I didn't nothing. We gutted her. It's cold. Leave her here. We'll come back and break her down. And we get back, and this elk's 13 foot in the tree. Figure that one out.
Oh man,
13 foot. She was 13 foot up in a deep wedge of a cottonwood. Now, or not? I'm sorry, of an aspen.
Right.
Now, when I tell you she was wedged, these aspen had growed together. So one aspen had come kind of straight up, and the other one had growed across that aspen tree, which made a pretty big V-shaped wedge. And like I told you, it was 13 foot. I measured it. I knew exactly to the inch how high it was. I mean, it was 13 foot in the air, a full cow elk carcass.
Man, that is so. I know I sound like a novice at this, but all of these strange things these things leave behind just blows me away. The things that they do with, you know, hunters' kills and stuff they kill, it's just unreal. So did you guys get up in there and get that cow out of the tree, or what did you do?
We couldn't. I mean, a full-born cow elk, you know, we're talking 400-pound animal. And the way she was wedged in there was like when it was put in that wedge, it was pulled, and them trees kind of come apart a little bit to wedge it even tighter. So what we ended up doing is we couldn't get her out and leave the trees. We ended up cutting one of the aspen down, and she fell to the ground. And we had noticed her legs, and this is another weird kind of, I don't know why, and I don't claim to know why, but her legs were snapped off at the knees, all 4 legs, and tied almost like a damn backpack strap would be.
Wow.
You know, they were literally pulled together and tied like it carried it like a backpack, if that makes sense to you, how the legs had been broke, and that gives them that you know, just that floppiness enough to tie the hide around each other and pull tight. I mean, it was tied like a backpack, and we kind of looked at each other and just scratched our heads like, you know, what in the heck would have done that? This can't be I've killed probably myself 30 mountain lions over the years up here, probably 25 bear myself. I've never seen nothing like this.
Right.
And so we ended up breaking that cow down and getting her back to camp. And, you know, that was pretty uneventful the rest of the season. 2016, same kind of thing. Cabins just screwed with a little bit. Hunters messed with. Rocks thrown at us. Let's see. Let's get to some good stuff. 2018. Let's do 2019. Let's cut to the real good stuff here. 2019, my wife comes. Well, she's my girlfriend, not my wife, but comes in the house, and she has this look of just disbelief on her face. This girl's lived up here with me for 3 years now. And I said, "What's wrong, honey?" And she says, "We ain't got no chickens." I said, "What?" She said, "The chickens are gone." I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "My goat's gone and the chickens are gone." So I throw my boots on. You know, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to get up. I just got off of hauling some cattle, and she's telling me the chickens are gone. So I'm thinking, all right, she left the door open. The chickens got out last night. That's all I'm thinking. No, the chicken coop was still locked, but it had been turned over on its side. Something picked the chicken coop up and turned it over. Now, this is not, let's make it clear, this isn't a chicken coop that you go buy on Amazon that holds 3 chickens. This is a 2x6 built, 14 by, I think it was 8, a 14 by 8 coop had been lifted up onto it and flipped over on its side.
Wow.
Now, the gate gets locked at night. Something reached over the wire, the chicken wire, and pulled them out of there. Figure that out. Every one of them, 55 chickens were gone.
No dead chickens laying around, anything, just gone.
Not a single one of them dead, nowhere.
Wow.
But the coop, it's like, it's hard to even say stuff like this out loud to people, because hell, you even think yourself you're crazy talking about it, you know. The gate, you know, the chicken coop gets locked at night because there are foxes and coyotes up here. You know, we've never had a problem around the house, but we still take precautions because we're a working ranch.
Yep.
So we lock the gate at night, and then the chicken coop gets closed up, and it gets a little lock on there. Now, the lock isn't locked on the coop itself, but the gate, it is locked. The only funny thing is the coop just sits on the ground. You know, you got your straw in there, you got your nesting boxes, and then your roosting areas in the coop. It was pushed over, and then the chickens grabbed from out of it. That's
amazing.
Pygmy goat that I got her for, she'd always wanted a goat. I agree. Don't ask why. She got this stupid goat. It was her little pal. Followed her everywhere. Bottle fed it from the time I got it until it was grown. This goat was like a stupid dog. You know, it was literally a dog at this point. It wasn't even a goat.
Yep. We've had
But
it.
It lived in the chicken coop.
Yeah.
Lived in the chicken. It was gone. The goat was gone. Something took the goat too. And 55 chickens taken.
Oh, unreal. Right up close to your house. I mean, this isn't...
it's a quarter mile behind the house.
Did you guys let the chickens out in free range during the day, or just keep them cooped up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's why hence the reason we locked the gate at night. Because they would go back into the coop themselves in the evening, you know, and we'd just go up, shut the door, lock the gate, and go inside. It was done for the day. So there's how that happened. The goat, John, never did find it, never found a sign one of chickens, and I've been all over these mountains. But so we don't have any chickens just cruising around up here on the hill, you know, like they're having the time of their life or anything. So,
so did you replace the chickens?
Yes.
Any other trouble with your new chickens?
Yeah, absolutely. We never have eggs.
Man, I'm having the same problem.
We've got 40 Rhode Island Reds. Well, it's mixed. There's 20 Rhode Island Red hens. We've got 20 Wyandottes. Out of 40 chickens. Now, what we would like to do normally, let's not this situation. Let's put it back to where it belongs. What she likes to do is take the eggs to town, and she just dispenses them amongst whoever wants eggs. This is kind of her little hobby.
Yeah.
And of course we eat them too, you know, but there's no way we're going to eat 40 eggs a day. What's even funnier about the whole situation is that she will get to the point that she would just, it didn't matter who you were. If you want eggs, here's eggs kind of deal. And we went from, these were now mature birds starting to lay, you know, and you get your pullet eggs for a little while. And we were leaving the pullet eggs, crumbling them up and refeeding. And then they started to actually produce, you know, good sized brown eggs, you know, pretty large eggs. And, you know, so we stocked up on ours and then started giving them out again. It just dawned, it just kind of one day was like she went to get eggs and lo and behold, there's like 2 eggs. I mean, there 40 chickens, 2 eggs. How does that work? You know, but yet nothing was disturbed.
Well, you know,
I've seen 1,000 skunks in my time come into a chicken coop, and they'll eat some eggs or they'll gnaw the heads off a few chickens and they're gone.
Right.
I'm talking 30 plus eggs at a time. Are gone.
Yeah, a lot of times a raccoon will, if they can get a chicken out, they'll take it with them. A possum will eat the chicken right there. And I don't know if y'all have opossums in Colorado, but
no, we don't. No.
Anyway, I'm not trying to, I never do this, and forgive me, but I'm having the same problem. We've got 30, and we just got a mixture of Americanas and sex links, Wyandottes, and they're just pets,
sure,
you know, and we're down to about 30. They molted in the fall and egg production stopped. Now, out of 30 chickens, we'd go 10 days and we wouldn't get a single egg. Now that's unusual. They're a little older. These girls are a little bit older. They're still laying age, and we've got some younger ones, but we went 10 days without any eggs. And then we would have 1 or 2 and we were getting, you know, 20 to 24 a day out of 30 chickens.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
And this is towards the end of January, and they've gone through the molt. They've got good plumage on them. They're beautiful. Our winters are nothing like yours here in Mississippi, and they should be laying. We've got some sunny days and they should be laying, but we're still not getting any eggs. And it's, and I've never thought of this until you just said that, till you just talked about.
Well, you're getting eggs, but you're not getting them. Let's put it that way. They're laying eggs. I mean, you're not going to, I've been around this my whole life, and then a chicken's a chicken. A chicken does 2 things. Well, 3 things. It scratches and eats, it poops, and it lays eggs. That's all a chicken does.
That's right.
And out of 30 chickens, you can expect no less than 20 eggs a day.
Right.
They're laying. You just aren't first in line for them eggs. And that's kind of what our situation's been. And it's mind-boggling, because if it was a predator coming in and doing this, like you're saying, if it's a coon, a fox, a coyote, what have you, it's going to eat a few of the chickens. There's going to be broke eggs everywhere, because they're not going to eat the shell. They break the egg open, they get the yolk out of it, the runny egg and yolk, and then they're gone.
That's right.
You're always going to have, regardless if it's a possum, a coon, a fox, et cetera, you're always going to have something left behind from that predator coming in and doing that. We don't have that. We just don't have eggs.
I just can't believe I've got the same. I don't think I have the same thing going on that you do. So, or maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I'm going to I'll grow blackberries too. And last spring, when we got our first production of blackberries, I know we had 10 or 15 gallons of blackberries on the vine ready to pick. I mean, they turn black almost overnight. We go out there to the next day to make the first pick, and every blackberry on our vines and bushes are gone. It's the weirdest thing. And they rebloomed again, and we got a pretty good harvest. But anyway, I'm sorry to interject my stories.
No, I don't find it weird at all. I just find it even more compelling evidence. You know, I mean, it's right there in front of us.
See, the deer come up, and I take the wildlife fencing down during, around the first of deer hunting season here. And the does will come in and they'll munch on the branches. Well, that's good for them because they're pruning for me. And so next year on the branches that were green the last year, there'll be 4 or 5 shoots come off where the deer nipped them off. So I let the deer munch on them. But when there's berries on them, I've got wildlife netting. A deer won't come through it. It's just, they just won't do it.
No, they won't.
What is getting in my, I don't know. It just blows me away, but let's drop that. So your chicken problem was did you say 2018 or 19?
It started. It's still going on today. I mean, we can't win for lose with this chicken situation. It's just insane. Here's you referenced your garden and your blackberries and blueberries, stuff like that. We put in I didn't. There's no we about it. I'm not a gardener. I'm a rancher and a hunter. And my girlfriend put in a great big garden this last year. I mean, a big one. Squash, cucumbers, melons, cantaloupe melons, watermelon, corn, and then she did about 9 rows of chilies, Pueblo chilies to be specific, and some Anaheim chilies, and she did about 3 rows of jalapenos. We like our chilies up here, we like that spicy food.
Sure.
Our garden got raided, it was about, I think, the 2nd or 3rd week of July. Something had raided the garden, and I mean, it stripped bare. I mean, it took jalapeno. I mean, the whole entire garden had been gone through. And she come in the house and was just madder than a hornet, Somebody's been up here, and I went out and looked. Nobody'd been in here. I mean, it's Kate Poison obvious when you're looking at a 19-inch footprint, bare footprint in the ground.
Oh,
I kind of wiped my foot over this footprint. I didn't want her noticing it. And there wasn't just one. There was about 20 of them walking through her garden. So I kind of, with my boot, would just kind of kick the soil around a little bit like I was looking, trying to track something, but I just didn't want her catching it. So, I mean, it was obvious what had happened. But the funny thing is obviously they don't like chilies or jalapenos, because about 2 days later, out of all that produce that had been taken, the chilies and jalapenos were thrown at the house.
Oh, man.
Thrown. I mean, they were literally scattered, and you could see, because we got a stucco house, and, take a chili and bounce it off some, it leaves little green marks all over the place. We had green marks all the way down the side of the damn house, where something had chucked all these chilies and jalapenos at the house. Evidently, they don't like jalapenos or chilies.
They were pissed at you.
Well, they brought them back, I mean, I was kind of happy. I don't care about the watermelon and stuff. Just bring me my chilies, and they returned them, but it wasn't in a fair manner. I don't think, if they're going to take them from us, bring them back nicely. But they were literally thrown across it, and that was another thing. I get up early in the morning, and I went and started the semi. I was going to haul a load of cows that day out of here, and calves, as a matter of fact. So I fired the old semi up, and I seen it, and I said, "Oh hell." So I went and got the hose, and I washed the house down a little bit, kind of, I don't really want her knowing what I'm expecting this is, or up to this point, because I just didn't want to scare her, especially because there's a lot of times I leave. I haul our cattle all over the country. We've got some summer ground in Kansas and Oklahoma both that we'll haul cattle to. We'll bring them back in the winter, and then we'll haul our calves out to sale. And so I'm on the truck quite a bit. I was always kind of just trying to, I was afraid basically for her to know what's going on, and I know that's kind of selfish of me to do so, but at the same time, I just, kind of cover your woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't want her worrying about stuff that may not be a huge issue.
Exactly. Especially when I'm gone, because up to that point, there hadn't been anything, as I would say, attack wise that had happened. Now let's fast forward to a month and a half ago when I really got serious, David Paulades, and with Steve himself too, reaching out for help, because our house started coming under attack quite a bit. We'd be laying there at night, and the sides of the house was getting banged on, and I mean, just things out of the blue, feeds getting stolen. We're losing, like your oats and stuff that you'd feed your horses. I mean, something's taking 400 pounds of feed sacks. That's a lot of weight. I don't know of any animal that's going to carry it off. I mean, they're going to tear it open right there and get into them like the coons, or, even you get your spring bear cubs that are young, they'll come into a barn and, they'll rummage through your oats and stuff like that for your horses, but they're not carrying bags off. Something took the bag.
Right.
Steve kind of insinuated that they don't like certain light. And so we set up motion activated spotlights all over the place. I did. She thought I was crazy. I said, well, it keeps the bears out. So I started doing a lot of that. I put up trail cams everywhere, and a real weird pattern started happening after that. The trail cams were never getting video of anything. I think it's the infrared, like everybody agrees that these things know about. But my trail cams were being demolished. I mean, on 412 pictures on 13 trail cameras, okay? Mind you, 412 pictures of tree branches poking at them. Figure that out.
Yeah.
They're in a tree within 150 yards of the barn and where we store our feed. And but tree branches are poking these cameras. And eventually it led into the cameras are being demolished. I mean, they're being smashed to pieces. Lights are being, the light poles that we had put up are being pulled down to the ground nonstop, weird stuff like that. I got real serious with Mr. Steve there at howtohunt.com. I got pretty serious with him, was asking for some help, and he's the one that put me in touch with Steve. And I had to call him because it started into where these turned out from occurrences into downright attacks. I mean, they were tearing stuff up. I had a tree, probably 8-inch diameter pine, thrown through the windshield of my pickup. My semi-truck doors had been, I got a 2017 Peterbilt truck. They're quite expensive investment there, and it had taken, and it looked like somebody had squarely punched the door, but it punched it so hard it caved my door in. That's $2,700 repair right there.
Yeah.
Rocks are being thrown at the house to the extent that it's busting stucco off. It's gotten to the point it scared her so bad. The howling, that's the other thing, and it's been happening a lot where the howls. They started earlier about September of this year. It started more like I don't know how to describe them. It's not really a howl. It's not really a call of any sorts. They're more like a damn grunt, and it started out as a real powerful but muffled grunt. Does that make sense? I mean, you can feel it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't real loud.
Right.
And it started as those, and there'd be, 3 or 4 different directions of these grunts coming. And then it got to where things were occurring around here so frequently that I kind of got fed up with it. And so as a guide, I'll tell you a little background on where I'm at with it is I hunt Africa every 2 years. I go to Zimbabwe, South Africa, and I hunt. I've got a 458 Win Mag. I've got a 500 Nitro Express. I've got some real heavy firepower that we'd use, for hunting the big 5 there in Africa, because I'm pretty Cape buffalo hunting. I've killed 7 of them now. And kind of my thing to do is I like to go to Africa every other year, stuff like that. And so it got to the point where I loaded that 500 Nitro Express, and when I started hearing grunts, I'd fire shots in the direction of them. It'd get to where I think that it's more of a retaliation on my part, I guess. I'm just trying to tell them I'm sick of it, knock it off, in ways that I know how to handle it. And that's where Steve has been a big help.
Let me stop you. You said David Pilates, and the man named Steve. Does he have a YouTube channel?
I don't know. I don't do this whole YouTube thing very often. I talk to him directly all the time. I don't do the YouTube. Let me look real quick.
Well, that's okay, because there's a guy up in British Columbia who's an outfitter like you.
Yeah, that's Steve at howtohunt.com. Yeah, absolutely. He's got a YouTube channel and everything. He's a very seasoned, very professional big game guide. We share a lot of the same passion.
You guys are living the dream. I've seen a couple of his videos, and he lives in a beautiful place, man.
Yeah. See, and he's the one that has put me in touch with Pilates, and with the one that's been a real big help has been Scott Carpenter. And I've worked real close and directly with him throughout these last episodes, because it's gotten to where it's coming down to it. I'm either going to kill him or we're going to find common ground here.
Yeah.
I don't know how to sugarcoat that, but this is my livelihood. This is my home. That's my lady. I've got a child here. I mean, it's coming down to the point where either we're going to find a way to coexist or I'm going to kill him. That's where bottom line is. And I know that's harsh, and a lot of your viewers are going to say, well, how dare you? But until you're in this situation, don't dare me. You know what I mean? Don't question me, because there's time. And that's why I say these aren't your friends. People that want to feed them and leave gifts and this and that. You're bringing in something you have no idea about. I'm telling you, there's a whole lot more to this than we all know, than anybody knows.
Have you had a visual?
3 of them.
Okay. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can. The latest was less than 2 weeks ago. I brought a lot of the calves out of here because we're starting to get the big heavy snows, and it's hard, this time of year because we'd have to feed constantly. So I took a load of the yearling calves down to Oklahoma. I've got some grass down there that we like to run them on in the winter. I was late, of course, because we'd had a good hunting year, been real busy, and I was late getting my cattle moved. And I noticed a shadow. I was in the kitchen looking out at the barn. One of the lights had triggered, and I noticed a very large shadow just to the west of the barn there. And I ran out the front door, and I had a rifle, and I was expecting it more or less to be a bear. Like, I kind of, the way the shadow had looked was like a bear was leaning up trying to figure out how to get in the window of the barn. Well, it wasn't. It was crouched over looking in the window of the barn trying to figure out how to get in there to get that feed. Because I ran 440 direct to each of the door handles that at night I switch on, and that's been kind of the only thing saving our feed, and I've done a lot of prep work here lately thanks to Scott Carpenter and his great ideas. It's really started to cut my feed bill in half again. It has also made it to the point that these things they're turning into, I guess for sake of words, they're little bastards about everything. I mean, if they're determined to tear it up and get in there, they're going to, and I've reached my boiling points with it. So I grabbed the rifle and I went after it, and I was probably less than 40 yards from it. I fired a couple shots. Now, when I say I fired a couple shots, let's get this straight. I did not shoot in any unsafe direction, nor did I shoot directly at it. I fired shots into the ground directly in front of me. So before anybody freaks out, I wasn't trying to shoot, AKA it, because I'm going to call them it, because I don't know what else to call them at this point. I don't know what they are. Yeah. They're Sasquatch or Bigfoot, but there's so much mystique involved in it. I'm just going to say it because it's easier. I fired and I screamed at it and was, get the hell out of here. I'm sick and tired of this. And I fired some shots and it ran off, but it made the most god awful howling sound I've ever heard. More of a scream type howl as it was leaving that I've ever heard in my life. It chilled me to the bone. I haven't had anything happen since then. Maybe it'll remember. I don't think there's any teaching if that's anyone's mindset that you can teach these to come. No, you can't. I've heard so much that of different, they can teleport or they can shape shit, and I've never seen nothing like that. To me, it's a living, breathing, God, for sake of words, I really don't know what to call it. It's a Sasquatch. It's a living, breathing, eating animal. I mean, it lives, it breathes, it dies. Yeah. And I think they know that as well. Now, do they have ways about them that we would never expect? Sure, I'm sure they do, because I don't know anything about these things. I don't think anybody truly does. Nope. I think all we know is what we've heard and what we can use that we've heard versus experiences. And from that, I think we can come away with certain ideas of what these things can do. Can they talk? Yes, they can. And let's get to that. Here's an interesting subject for you if you want to talk about it. Go for it. They've got a language. They have a damn language. It is not English. It is not anything you've ever heard in your life. It is like listening to, I would describe it as a mix. I don't want to call nobody out, no race or ethnicity, but if you've ever heard tribes speak in tongue, that's kind of what it reminds me of. Yeah. And I've heard it. My girlfriend called me the other night, paranoid as all hell. It was about, oh God, I think it was like 1:30 in the morning. She was crying. She was upset. I said, what's wrong? She said, hell, there's somebody out here. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, honey, I can hear them talking. I hear them. There's two voices and it's a man's voice. I said, well, what are they saying? She says, I can't make it out. It's nothing I've ever heard before. And that's when I started really getting nervous. And it's like, all right, something's got to give. I'm not home. She is. They're not, and that's the other thing. And I think a lot of people realize they're not afraid to show themselves to women. 98% of the occurrences around here evolve around a woman, period. Right. And when Scott Carpenter was talking to me about this, it really hit home, because then I started thinking, every time we've had an instance or an occurrence, I guess you want to call it, is when I had recently just gotten home. Now, she had possibly been home for 3 or 4 days by herself at this point. I truly feel that women and children pique their interest. for reasons why. Hell, I don't know. Like I said, I'm no expert.
That's a real common thread throughout history. You know, historical accounts bear that out.
You know, that night I told her, I said, well, just open the front door and fire a few shots out there and get rid of them. She said, I'm not opening any doors. She said, but I do have the gun, and I'm gonna stay here in the room with the baby. And I said, well, I'll get home as soon as I can. And so I put the old semi in gear and to the house I went. And that morning I went out looking. We'd had fresh snow on the ground. Sure enough, there were tracks less than 40 feet from the house.
Man.
And when I say tracks, these aren't human footprints. I mean, you get a human up here and there's snow on the ground. They're going to be walking in clothed feet, you know, and these are barefoot prints, but they're big. I mean, several of the footprints are not as big. That, you know, I could see maybe a real, let's say an 8-foot tall human being perhaps to be running around up here, because these are 17-inch prints. But the other set of tracks that I'd found were 21 inches. I don't know a damn man in the world with 21-inch long foot.
Nope.
Especially barefoot.
Yeah.
At 85, 9,500 feet in altitude in the Colorado backcountry. Come on. You
live at 8,500 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
My house from the highway, just the nearest pavement, I'm 13 and a half miles up dirt road. So you gonna tell me that some gigantic basketball player type feller walk 13 and a half miles up here to stand by the damn kitchen window and talk?
No.
Exactly.
No.
No.
We were talking before we got started. Unless you have some more encounters you want to share, got about 10 minutes left, but you've got some opinions on these things, and I think you and I agree. Now, on my YouTube channel, I never really give an opinion, but I'll tell you this. I don't think they're interdimensional. I think they're flesh and blood animals, and I think for the most part, they don't have goodwill towards people. Now, I know you've said it in this interview, and I'm agreeing with you. There's going to be people who disagree with that. They think they've got little butterflies on their shoulder and little birds in their hair and stuff like that.
They don't know them too well, do they?
Well, they're a predator. I mean, they kill wild game. I mean, from all accounts, they kill wild game. They just you've had an experience where they put a cow elk 20 feet up in a tree. I mean,
13 foot.
Unbelievable. So you've got some opinions on these things, and you've talked to some guys out there that know, who have experienced these things. Will you talk about that a minute and I think people need to hear it from a guy.
If you want to ask me two of the biggest authorities on the AKA Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, I call them a pain in the ass, because that's all they are to me. Steve at howtohunt.com. The man is a wealth of knowledge about them, and Steve himself, coming from another lifelong guide, professional big game guide. I've seen it. I've killed it. I've killed everything. I've killed elephant. I've killed Cape buffalo. I've killed brown bear. I've killed grizz. My God, I've got a 2,200 square foot game room in my house. I mean, when it comes to it, I've done it. I'm anything but a novice when it comes to wildlife and behaviors of wildlife, such as Steve himself. And when the man can look you in the eyes and tell you what he's seen, you know, a man of his caliber, you need to listen. And then you got another man on the other side of the country from us, where you are, and down there in your neck of the woods, Mr. Scott Carpenter. The man's a wealth of knowledge. Some of his ideas I do tend to disagree with a little bit, but I'm no one to question him, because he's got a lot more knowledge than I have. I do not for 1 second, though, believe these are any type of a shapeshifter. Absolutely not. I've ran after it. I've shot at it. I've shot near it in an effort to ward it off. Yep. And never once. Now, if that's an instance that it's a shapeshifter, why the hell didn't it do it?
Right.
If it's interdimensional, why didn't it jump back in some dimension and take off away from me? I fired live rounds into the ground while running at the thing, screaming at it. It was running away from me, screaming.
Yep.
That tells me right now that this is an animal that knows fear. This is an animal that recognizes intent to harm, because I had full intention, had it turned or wouldn't leave, I was going to shoot. to kill, to protect my place, period. This is my home. So when it comes to that, I truly cannot wrap my head around it. Am I right by saying that? No. Do I have proof of otherwise? No, I do not. So I'm not going to try to go against people with that kind of knowledge and say that maybe these things do or don't, because I don't know. I only can tell you from my experiences, I don't see that. I see a living, breathing, bleeding animal. Let's get away from the animal terminology. To me, this is more of a Neanderthal type creature, I guess is what I want to say.
Yeah.
I mean, if for, you know, I'm no scientist. I'm no cryptozoologist. I don't know what the hell to call something. I call it what I see it, and it's a big son of a gun, and it runs upright, and it eats, it breathes, it lives.
Yeah.
Am I knowledgeable enough to go against some of the greatest minds in this field? And I'm going to call these people great minds in this field, because these are not your BFRO type television people. These are true grit, down to earth, good-hearted, honest men and women that I'm going to take into consideration, because I don't judge a man by their knowledge. I judge them by their character.
Yeah.
And if I can trust you, I trust you. If I don't trust you, you mean nothing to me.
Right.
And I can honestly say that if my life was in jeopardy, Mr. Steve himself, howtohunt.com, one of the greatest big game guys you're ever going to come across, period. Hands down. The man has seen it. He's done it. Scott Carpenter. I trust a man with my life, and I have trusted my life with him. Let's not just say that I'm just saying that. I have taken his ideology and applied it to things around here that were happening that has truly brought easement on this.
Yeah, you've seen results.
So I've seen results. Now, this man didn't just dream this stuff up. I mean, things that he has had me do, and I'm not going to go into details, because if people are having these issues and they need to reach out for help, there's truly help available. But you have to go with an open mind.
Well, here's what I'll do. I have a YouTube channel, but believe it or not, I don't watch too much YouTube. I work all day, and then if I'm not working, I'm working on a video or I'm talking to people like you. I just don't have time to sit and watch, but I'll find their channels and I'll link them below. If they're popular on YouTube, then people probably already know about them. There's also another, you were talking about killing one or killing one if you had to.
Absolutely, I will.
There's a channel in two guys in West Virginia, and they apparently have, I just found their channel. Somebody sent me a link to their video. It's called Old Bears Den of Bigfoot. These guys are in West Virginia, and the first video I pulled up, the guy's talking about, he's following up on some stories that he shared on his channel, and he's talking about these people killing them so they can be killed. He's like, well, this one that was, you know, trying to bang down his door, trying to reach in a window, he finally wound up killing the thing. I don't know what people do with the carcasses after they kill them, if they just take a front end loader, an excavator, and bury them, or what they do, and they don't report it for fear of ridicule or whatever. But
I can bring some light into that subject real quick that would put a lot of people's minds at ease. And I think if somebody would listen truly to what I have to say as far as what happens when you kill one, I think it's going to shed a lot of light on these people that are being ridiculed, that have said they have killed one, came publicly with that information, and everybody berates them over where's the carcass, where's this, where's that. I'm going to tell you right now, if you see one, they're never alone. I'm telling you. Experience tells me this. Right. First-hand experience. These are never alone. When you are in that fearful of a situation that you are taking the life, you're not going to come out and stand above it and stare at it. You're going to leave, and you're going to collect your thoughts, and you're going to come back. By then, they have collected that they're dead, and they are gone.
And I would say after you take the shot, you knock one down, you need to keep your eyes open and get them off of that thing you just hit and start watching your flanks. A big part of this whole topic of Bigfoot is people using critical thinking skills, in my opinion. And the flesh and blood animal is just logical. It's a predator. it's just logical thinking. And I know that's how you see it. And with your,
yes, I do.
With your experience and your run-ins with these things, and they're taking money. I mean, you just lost a 10-year client over these things. So, I mean, and folks, these hunts are not cheap. I mean, these folks, people who hunt these big game animals in the high country in the West.
Let me put it out there for people. These trophy elk hunts are $12,500.
Right.
For a fully guided 7-day trophy elk hunts, $12,500, you know, and this is a man that has hunted with me for 10 years. You do the math, people, at $12,500 a hunt. This man spent $130,000, $140,000 over the years hunting with me to never again willingly step foot on a mountaintop in his life. This man has never picked a rifle up since, and I know this for a fact. He has never stepped foot off of a paved trail since this occurrence.
Wow. Was it just the rock, Mike? Was it just the rock is that all he experienced?
It was the rock and the sighting. Right. I did not. Now let's clear that. I never saw it. I was focused on these elk that were looking in the direction that rocket came. At the time, I was unwary of that. I did not know they had seen something or were aware of something until the rock hit and the elk took off. I was focused on judging the quality of these bulls. He had seen something, never to be spoken of ever. I can't get a word out of his mouth as to far as what he saw. All he'll say, point blank, I will never go in the woods again. I know what I saw. That's all he'll tell you. He will not go into any detail. He will not say a word otherwise. And I've tried since 2014 to get him to talk to me, to get him to come back up here and hunt with me. I've offered him a free, fully guided mule deer and elk hunt, combo hunt, fully guided. That's $22,000 worth of hunt. Yeah. He won't come up here.
He's probably a successful guy and an achiever, and he probably doesn't want
very much so.
He probably doesn't want his name associated with it, and I can see that. I mean, I can see that. I'm shameless. I don't mind talking about it, but I've never had an encounter, so I don't really. I mean, if somebody asks me, I'm just like, I've never seen one, but I've heard a lot of stories.
You know, and what kills me with this subject is you talk to somebody about it, and you're making that up, and it's like, you think for 1 second I'm going to cut the hand that feeds me, son? Are you out of your mind?
Right.
I go public with this. I stand to nothing, gain nothing, but lose everything. This hunting is 80% of this ranch's money intake every year. 80% of our yearly income is hunting. And you think coming forward, I stand to gain by that? Are you kidding me? I don't advertise guided Sasquatch viewings. I don't advertise none of the sort because I know what that's going to do to me. Yeah. So I have everything to lose by coming forward. I have nothing to gain by it. So anybody that mocks these people that come forward and tell their stories, I'll be the first one to stand up and tell you to kiss my ass and kiss their asses too, because I'm telling you, these people gain nothing by telling their story.
Which brings us full circle to when we talked. Now, for everybody listening, I do these interviews cold. Mike started telling a little bit of his story before we started recording, and I said, hold on, I don't want to waste your time. I just want you to tell it one time. But I can usually tell on the front end if a guy knows what he's talking about. But the reason that you were willing to, when I asked you to do a recorded interview, was you want people to know something about these things. Why don't you, or do you feel like you've already been through that enough, or do you want to kind of wind up and say?
No, what it boils down to is if you want to step back into the nostalgia of this whole thing for just a minute. Okay, missing 411. Let's start there for just a second. I don't want to get case to case by it, but let's start with this. Thousands of people disappear in national parks across the U.S. each year. Each year. Thousands of documented disappearances, not a single trace. Some of these disappearances, and I'm not going to say a little number. I'm not saying 5 or 10. I'm saying 60% of these, if you want to do the research, people, it's out there. 60% of these are very experienced hikers, very very experienced backcountry hikers. These people know what they're doing, and they're disappearing without a trace. These are people that have never had suicidal issues. They've never had mental issues. These are very fit, very trained, very knowledgeable people going back in these parks, backcountry, and disappearing. There's more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah.
People need to be aware of what's out here. And if you are one of those that, it doesn't exist, fine, so be it. Have your opinion, but damn it, be versed in what could be there. Because I'm telling you, people, they're there. And if you happen to cross paths, and I'm not saying this is what's happening in these 401 cases, I'm not. But what I'm saying is there's a damn good probability a lot of this can be tied to this, because what if you happen to step into a den site and they've got young, and they, God forbid, but they kill you to protect their young? I mean, I'm putting it out there. That's simply all I'm doing. Be aware. I mean, this is as real as you and I are breathing and talking.
Well, again, critical thinking and logic would tell you that it's not the natural predators that roam at least your part of the country. The biggest predator we have down here is a cottonmouth snake. We have coyotes, but in your part of the world, I mean, you have big man-eating predators. They'll kill a man. They can kill a man. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know that they do that much, but when they do,
over the last few years, we've had a lot of black bear fatalities. We've had many cougar attacks. Not so much fatalities, but attacks. But there have been several fatalities in the last 10 years over black bear here. Yeah,
when a bear or a mountain lion takes a human as prey, half the carcass is bones, a skeletal structure, something is left. And
we're recovering these, yes.
But on
the recovery is 100% so far.
So the missing 411 thing, these people just vanish. They don't. There's no sign. There's nothing left. And some of them show back up with, and I haven't read too many of them, but some of them show back up with one shoe on 2 weeks later, or, there's all kind of odd circumstances that goes around it. So, and it is a mystery, but I think logic will kind of bring you back to, I'm not going to say it, but it'll bring you back to something that I think people like you verify. That's my opinion. And
I think it verifies itself, and I think people are just closed-minded, and they don't want to believe out of fear. I think fear drives people more than anything does is fear. And I feel that if you have to go against what you've been told in life, it builds a fear inside you, and that fear becomes inanimate. You don't want to admit this. You don't want to use that extra precaution when you take your family up into the wilderness for the weekend. You don't want to think of that out of fear. And I think instead of being fearful, you need to be knowledgeable and realize there are things in this world we have no explanation to. Don't discredit it. Keep it as a safety aspect in your life. Keep it. Hold on to it and think about it when you're doing these kind of activities. Because it could happen. It does thousands of times every year.
You're the second person I've talked to, and I feel what you're telling me, I feel guilty because people ask me a lot. I don't know why they ask me, but I'm out in the woods all the time. Even though I work all day, I take breaks. I'll ride my bike out in these hardwood forests. I just like being out. And I'm always asking, are you carrying? And I never carry. I carried a pistol 2 years ago through the winter because we had a pack of dogs around here, and it wasn't to protect me. It was to keep them off my dogs. And I never ran into them, but I knew they were there. I'd see them across a lake, or I'd see them running through a slough or a bottom. And usually they're running away from you, but they pack up. It's not like coyotes. These are domestic dogs that just go cur. But which is 10 times as dangerous as any coyote pack or a wolf pack to begin with. Yeah, coyotes don't mess with people. They avoid people at all costs. They know what they know. They know we're the top predator. And I tell people, just go because I enjoy the woods so much. I mean, every single day I'm out there alone, and I just love it. I love it. But our wilderness, I can walk a mile to the north here and I'm going to hit a road. If I walk to the east, I'm going to hit a road in a half a mile. So it's not like where you live. We live in very tame, we live in a very tame environment down here in Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Florida. Maybe it's a little different. I think they have some larger predators down there, but where you are, it's a different story. I don't know how to juxtapose or, you know, put on the balance scale to tell people, please, the outdoors is so much fun and it's so nice and it's good for you.
Absolutely.
And try not to think about, you know, there are very, very few cases of these Sasquatch creatures. Matter of fact, I'm not even sure I know of any where there's a, how do you say it, a verified case of one killing somebody, because it's still considered a cryptid. But
it's too cliche, exactly.
But on the other hand, it might be a little dangerous. So maybe I should just refrain from giving advice, but I can only speak from my experience, and I have never, other than big fat cottonmouths, we live in Delta areas, and it's swampy, it's wet, it's full of
sure
big swollen cypress tree trunks and cypress knees. It's so different than where you live that it's just, that's my experience and that's where I come from. But by the way, Colorado is probably my favorite state. I remember when my dad took us there camping when we were kids, and we camped at a place called, I think it's called Lakeview. It's a reservoir there. I think it's a little north of Gunnison.
Yes, it is.
And I remember I was, 8 or 9 years old, and we had camped and we were trout fishing in that reservoir. We're catching trout like crazy. And I had never caught trout before. And, you know, just a Southern boy. And I remember it was dusk, just enough light over the mountain where the sky was just, you know, misty blue, you know, that blue at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And here comes these two cowboys on horses. It was a Friday night, and I know they had just gotten off work, and they were riding full, I mean, I don't know much about horse riding, but they were riding full steam ahead on these horses, and their hats were blown back, and, you know, they had their hats tied down under their chins, and just whipping those horses back. And I thought that I will never forget that image. Those guys were having so much fun. And everybody I've ever met that grew up in the rural areas of Colorado, I've never met a person out there I didn't like. And you guys have more fun, but you've got such a playground there. It's awesome. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yes, we do.
But that's just a memory I had, and I wanted to let you know. And you're one of them, Mike. You're one of the guys that I've talked to. You're easy to talk to. You've got a good head on your shoulders, but you got a problem there. And I just wanted to tell you I appreciate you coming on and agreeing to do this, because I think it's important stuff.
Absolutely.
We're at about an hour 15 now. I can probably edit out all my blabbering on chickens and cut it down to about. I hope you've got my number. I hope you'll stay in touch with me if something else comes up, or if you ever want to do this again. You are always welcome.
Absolutely.
And
I'd love to. I mean, the more people are informed, the better off they are. But let's touch on that real quick, where you said you never go armed. I never go unarmed. Now, when I say unarmed, I'm not open carrying. I don't believe in an open carry. I think it makes a fool of a man to carry an open style like that. This isn't the Old West. I carry concealed for a reason, because I don't want anybody to know that I'm armed, number one. Number two, I know that I am, and that's all that matters.
Right.
And I encourage anybody that's taking their children, their families camping, to take a firearm. Keep it concealed, but keep it ready. You never know. And it's always better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, simply put.
It's great advice. Great advice. So any advice I've ever given people, well, it wasn't advice. I'm just telling you, I don't carry when I'm in the woods unless I know there's a pack of dogs out there or something that I may have to get off my dogs. But Mike's giving you some good advice, and I would heed that. And if you're camping or hiking or whatever, find a place to slip that pistol in your waistband or whatever. There are 1,000 ways to carry.
Properly carry.
That's
exactly.
Right. And so carry just for self-protection. That's a good idea. Well, listen, I'm going to wind this up. We get past an hour and people quit listening, but I think people are going to be real interested in this. And again, thanks again for coming on. And guys, I appreciate you listening. Yeah, you're welcome. Appreciate you listening this far, and we'll see you guys on the next video.